Gary, it's great to see you again.
Great to see you, Ben.
So the last time we've actually met before, you were helping me with a project that I've been working on for a while, and you were telling me about a project you were working on called Escape from Death Block 13. I believe that's the name of the movie.
Yep. Yes, absolutely.
And that was a 3-year journey. Tell me what that was about.
Well, it was like I always wanted to do this like prison escape action movie, and the Shawshank prison, which is really the Mansfield Reformatory, was close by, and I have friends that worked there, and I always kind of drove past it for years. I went, man, I got to make a movie there. So I had a story idea, and I kind of worked up a script based or shooting around that prison, and so I was able to kind of put together this action escape movie. And I had met this actor, Robert Bronzi, who looks just like Charles Bronson, and that's kind of like his whole shtick is that he really resembles Charles Bronson. So I thought this is a great way for me to make a action film like from the past. I mean, I grew up in the 70s and 80s watching all the action stuff. So I thought, how cool to put this guy in it, Robert. He looks like Charles Bronson, give everybody that whole 80s, 70s, 80s vibe of action movie. So I cast him in it and put together the production. And we started in 2018, and it's all independently financed. And so I had started shooting, and I had to do the shooting in 2 different blocks because I was producing another movie in a few months. So I started my movie, and then I went off to produce a movie and came back, and we finished the shoot. And we were in our post in 2019 when things started to get business-wise, things were drying up. So our money was kind of tight. And then, of course, 2020 hit, and we had the pandemic thing, which just shut everything down. So it kind of delayed us a little bit, but it gave us a lot of time, gave me a lot of time to just do nothing else but lock the door and work on a movie. So we got the movie done, and eventually we got finished in 2021. We got distribution right away, and we came out in 2021. So it was a long journey, but it's out there for everybody to enjoy, and we're kind of on all the streaming platforms and Amazon and DVDs. So it's been working out okay.
I got to watch the movie. It's very, very well done. I thought it was really cool to see the Shawshank prison again. I've never been there to visit. It is on a list to see. I've definitely heard a lot of ghost stories about it, which makes it very frightening now. Something else that I realized in the film is that you actually have an Adam Sandler cast member, Nicholas Turturro, who happens to be the brother of John Turturro. What was it like working with him, and how did you get him on the production?
Nick Turturro is a great guy. I actually, when I wrote the script, I had a part in there, and I knew I was going to have a kind of this bad guy character, kind of this thug type guy that runs the warehouse. And I was trying to think of like different people who could play the part. And then I was introduced to a guy who's like a manager who knew Nick Turturro and a bunch of different actors. I went, Nick Turturro, he'd be great, And so I got in contact with Nick, and I sent him the script, and he liked the character. The character is in like, his character kind of motivates the whole story in a way, as a bad guy. And he kind of liked the way that he kind of shaped the way the movie went. And he was somewhat happy with the ending, for his character, but he liked the art that that he's responsible for all our hero's problems. And but no, he was great. He came in, and he kind of just knocked it out of the park. He read the part, and we talked over the phone briefly, and then he came out and just, it was he does a lot of ad-libbing though. We had a really tight script, but there's like moments in there where he could kind of embellish it. And so he brought it into the R-rated realm a little bit with some of the language. A lot of that language was not in the script. And of course, Nick kind of created this character. And it's kind of cool because the bad guy in the movie is the guy that swears. So I thought, that's kind of interesting. Nobody else uses the F word, but he does. And so it makes him a bad guy. So it kind of really kind of fit the bill for, a throwback retro action movie where you have good guys and bad guys, and the bad guys are bad because of what they do, but the bad guy's the only guy that swears. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But Nick was great. I mean, he just, the problem was he kept going, he'd add lines and just go crazy. And you had, the other actors had to catch up, right? So no, it was good, very good. It was really great having him in, and it really kind of anchors the movie in a way.
He was funny at it too. I mean, besides being the bad guy that you wanna not like, he also definitely gave some humor into it
Oh
as
yeah,
well.
yeah. He's twisting the mustache. He's chewing up that part. He took the bad guy to the realm. He gave the bad guy what the bad guy needed.
It's funny because I recently watched an Adam Sandler movie called I Now Pronounce You Chuck and Larry, and the character he portrays in that one is hilarious, especially in the one scene where I'm trying to think of the actor's name. He plays the kingpin in Pulp Fiction. He's married to Uma Thurman's character, Bing Ramsey. That's
Bing
who it
Rames.
is.
Yep, Bing Rames.
And it's where they find out. It's where Adam Sandler. It's after Adam Sandler finds out he's gay, and then they all find out he's gay. And Nick the Throws. I mean, it was hilarious. Just that character he plays in that movie is hilarious.
He brings something special to all the parts.
So anyhow, what inspired you to become a filmmaker?
Growing up, I guess, like everybody, I just started watching TV as a kid, and I just discovered these great movies. I'd watch King Kong or Wizard of Oz, and it's like entertainment. You start watching it, or like music. Once you start getting into it, these movies were like these great adventures. We grew up in a standard subdivision neighborhood with a lot of houses, and excuse me, got the window open here. And it was just regular upbringing, but you watch these great science fiction movies and cartoons and things on TV, and I got lost in all of that, and I just loved those adventures, watching a movie, and I could sit in front of the TV and just get lost in an adventure. And I started to go, wow, I mean, where do these things come from? And, I start to find out, well, people make them, they're made in Hollywood. And then I saw a couple of documentaries, like behind the scenes in Hollywood, how they're making a movie. And I was like, oh, wow, that's what I want to do. I want to go on that adventure. So it really started as a real young age, just wanted to do something different and getting outside of the norm, get up, you go to school, you eat dinner, you outside playing stuff. But it was also like, wouldn't it be so cool to go to another planet, go back in time where there's dinosaurs, where there's monsters. And I couldn't get those images out of my head. So I was thinking, how does that work? So just discovering that they were movies that were being made and people did them, and you got to be creative and make these things and these creatures out of rubber and stuff, so I got just really excited about it and thought, oh, how do I do that? And I discovered, you always had an artistic background. So I was always drawing cartoons and painting and making monsters and stuff, to clay. And I kind of discovered the director had this like key role, where he got to be the captain of the ship, right? And kind of sailed the ship through that adventure. So I sort of gravitated to the director's chair, but really growing up loving, all the monster makers, from way back, and, the Frankenstein's monster, and Ray Harryhausen, who did all the stop motion, was like, I'd see those characters and I'd like, what is this, and discover how stop motion worked, and discovered there was this guy that did it in a little studio, and how he did it all, and I was just fascinated how like one person could create such things. So it was through special effects, and then getting to the director's chair was kind of where I wanted to go. So it was like a progression thing, but yeah, early age, hey, sit down in front of the TV and watch King Kong or Wizard of Oz, and how do you not want to be there?
You also told me the first time we met, you told me that you're a huge fan of stop motion animation.
Mm-hmm.
What is your favorite, like throughout all of them, what has to be your favorite stop motion animation?
Wow, man, that's tough because gosh, I mean, of course, King Kong was kind of one of the first things, but Mighty Joe Young is like right up there. I think Mighty Joe Young for me has, it's more of a relatable character because they did more with him he was more human in his characteristics, the way he interacted, and you felt for him. And then at the end, when he saves the kids from the burning building, you're like, he's not a monster, It was a really good transition. So Mighty Joe Young probably is right up there, but I have to put like the Golden Voyage of Sinbad. It's tough though, because Jason and the Argonauts, and Sinbad, Golden Voyage of Sinbad, the Centaur, just, it's really hard to, there's so many that just fit that level. And then I just saw a movie recently called Chuck Steele, Night of the Trampires. And it just got released earlier this year. And it's all stop motion, and it's a real throwback to the 1980s action movies. And it's all stop motion, and they did it with, all the faces, they did clay to move the lips and stuff. So it's like all like one frame at a time. The creator, Mike Mort's the guy that created it. But that's at the top of my list now, because it was just like, the movie just knocked me out. It just had everything. But of course, Box Trolls, it's really tough, because every few years something comes out, that Paranorman, Coraline.
Love that one.
Yeah, Paranorman's great, but I think Box Trolls is their best movie. It just, something with the characters and the style of it, it's just perfect. But I got to go back to like Mighty Joe Young and, Golden Voyage of Sinbad, or Seventh Voyage, or Jason and the Argonauts. There's too many, but
those are definitely good ones.
Yeah, so those things really just kind of put the zap on me. So it's really hard to pick one,
Yeah, and it's funny because I've now realized when you said Paranorman that it's been 10 years since that movie came out.
Wow.
And I was 13 at the time, and remember seeing it for my 13th birthday with a group of friends, and it's like, has it been 10 years already? I mean, it feels like it was yesterday.
Well, I think I thought it might be long, because Box Trolls was probably 5 or 6 years ago. Yeah, so probably about 10. Yeah.
Another question I have.
Every 3 or 4 years their movies come out, so it takes like years. But
very true. Sorry for interrupting, but another question that I have is, what was the very first feature that you made?
A first feature film that I made as a director, or that I worked on?
As a director.
That would be a movie called Mosquito, about
Nice.
the giant killer mosquitoes. It was I had kind of toiled with a couple other movies that I sort of started and stopped, but Mosquito was the one that I kind of hit on. I was trying to figure out something to do that I could get noticed on, and of course it was going to have special effects, because that's kind of what I was doing. And I always had this love for the giant creature movies of the 50s. There was the one, Them, about with the giant ants. I always point to that one, because that one kind of blew me away. And so I was trying to come up with something, and I thought, well, mosquitoes. Me and my friends were just talking about stuff, and somebody said, hey, skeeters, that'd be cool. And I'm like, God, mosquitoes, yeah. And of course, no one had done it. So I'm like, wow, what if they're this big, instead of this? And I'm like, well, wait a minute, what if they're big enough that they could almost pick you up? Because this big is terrifying, but you'd have to have a lot of them, right? So it's more in special effects. But if I make them bigger, I can get away with one of them fighting somebody, or 2 or 3. And then the thought is that if there's an army of these, they'll take over the world. So it got bigger to like 6 feet, seemed to be the right size for it. And that way it could drain all your blood out in one go. So that was
terrifying.
Kind of an idea, but I thought the bigger they were, the better, and I initially they were going to be about 1 foot long, but I thought that's going to be a problem, because 1 or 2 of them is not really a threat. You just kill them. You'd have to have 100 of them. And then to do that special effects wise, it'd just be crazy. So I went, if they're bigger, I could have 1 or 2 flying around and it'd be very threatening. So they ended up getting much, much bigger. So that was my first movie, giant killer mosquitoes. And, it kind of did make a mark. So it did what it was supposed to do. Got me.
And the mosquitoes were stop motion as well, right?
Yeah, there was actually, I had done practical effects. I'd been working in practical effects for a few years, working on the Evil Dead movies and different things. And so it was all practical pretty much. We did end up with about 4 stop motion shots in the movie, because I had to have some stop motion. It was like, I wanted to have every type of visual effect and, special effect in it. But it's primarily practical bugs, practical cable operated rubber bugs, so that we could get a lot of the, motion and stuff down, and a lot of the action. And then we were always shooting them with shotguns or chainsaws, so we always had to blow them up. But a guy by the name of Paul Jessel, who was in Chicago at the time. He's a stop motion animator. I contacted him, and he did. We built the puppets for him. He made the armatures, sent them to us, and then we fabricated the puppets on them armatures, sent them back to him, and he did this couple of stop motion shots in the movie. So I really wanted to have that ode to like Ray Harryhausen and Willis O'Brien and all that, just to have stop motion in the movie, so I could say it's got everything. And I wish I could have done more shots, but they were kind of some of the most expensive shots.
Understood. Well, Gary, thank you very much for joining this podcast interview.
Great. No, great to be a part of it, and look forward to doing more.